I look like a woohoo. A wahoo. Cindy Woohoo. What do I say?
Cindy Woohoo. A wahoo.
A wahoo.
You're a wahoo.
Wahoo.
Okay. So we're ready? We're ready.
We're ready.
We're ready.
We're ready.
We're ready. We're ready. Yeah. So put my notes over here. Put the drink over here.
My hair. Lord Jesus, girl.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like right in my face.
That's what she said.
Oh, fuck. I hope to God this still sounds good. I can't imagine why it wouldn't. I mean, we're certainly loud enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I like this.
Thanks. Pink. Are we ready?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's go.
So, today we are doing
No.
not that motor. We're doing
No, today we are first introducing ourselves. Yes. Okay, let's try that again.
well. That's Cynthia,
Yep, that's me.
and I'm Heather.
Yep.
And this is Grave Crimes Podcast, also on YouTube.
We didn't say that last time.
We didn't, but
You know what? If you don't know who you're listening to or watching by now, I don't know what to fucking tell you. Right?
yeah, my hair, dude.
Yeah, well. I'm just glad I didn't have to do my makeup again.
I look a little nuts. Anyway, what else?
Exactly.
We're doing the Donner Party today.
Yeah.
Cannibals.
No. See the bacon.
Oh, our drink has bacon.
If you can see it, I'm making it nice and close. So you can see the bacon. Not really human bits.
No, we did bacon instead because we didn't want to do that human thing. So
Although I do have a plate of what's left.
I want to
3 servings.
to try it before I eat more bacon.
Try what? The drink?
Yeah.
Oh. There's not much bacon left, so you better
So
hurry.
we oh, I just smell the bacon. Shit. So we did 2 different ones. She did Tennessee honey.
Yeah, so this is like a maple, what is it? A maple bacon bourbon drink. I don't think it really had a name, like an official name.
We're gonna call it the Donner drink.
Yeah. Yep. That.
Yes. You did Tennessee honey,
I did.
and I did regular.
Yep.
Regular.
Now, it's supposed to be bourbon. I mean, I guess the guy at the liquor store, and I realized this after the fact when we purchased this stuff. It's supposed to be bourbon, Tennessee.
I just got did whiskey.
Jack Daniels is whiskey, but you know, whatever makes you happy. If you like bourbon, do bourbon. If you like whiskey, do whiskey. Whatever. Just whatever.
I'm
Because
just happy there's bacon. And then, so how did you make? We made like bacon syrup.
yeah, so you have to do like a simple syrup, and simple syrup is basically sugar and water, right? This is
Bacon.
like
Maple
literally
syrup.
strips of bacon in the pan,
Yeah.
pot,
Pawn.
saucepan,
Pawn.
the saucepan, syrup and water.
Yeah.
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 Not too hard. Boil it, simmer it for a minute, take it off the heat. To be honest, we weren't about to cook an entire thing of bacon because that just would have taken too long to get to where we needed to be. So we went to Dunkin' Donuts and got their snacking bacon. And yes, we've been snacking.
We've been
Or at least
snacking.
I have for sure, because I know I ate most of the bacon.
You did. I
did.
ate some of it.
This is like my weakness.
I got their
right
hash browns. I like their hash browns.
now. Yeah, this shit's the shit. It's
Well,
the shit.
now we're gonna see what this shit tastes like.
So let's test this and see
This
how
was
we
bacon
like
floating in my drink.
the taste of human
Oh,
people.
no.
No, yeah, no, not that.
Oh,
Ready?
my bacon fell.
Interesting. Sweet.
Huh.
Okay, let's try that one. We won't be drunk before the episode starts, I promise. Maybe. I might be lying.
Different. Yours is different.
Mine is definitely sweeter.
Yeah. I like mine better.
Well, that's good because I like mine better. It all works out.
Yes.
I'm
Eat my bacon.
Still eating a piece of bacon. Or is it?
My garnish.
You may never know. I think we should probably start the episode I don't think that they're here to watch us eat bacon and drink.
Why?
I mean, whatever.
Donner party.
Mm-hmm.
You start.
I'm always starting, damn it. It's because you're eating your liquored up bacon.
Absolutely.
So I felt like with this one, I kind of bounced all over the place, and I did multiple episodes of research. And I felt like we needed a little more back info.
Like what was going on in the United States at the time? Manifest Destiny?
Exactly. So that's where I started. And to be fair, I mean, like I know the term and I generally remembered what it meant. But I felt like not everybody may remember. Maybe somebody hasn't heard of it.
Ninth grade history, man.
It doesn't mean everyone's paying attention to
They
ninth grade
freaking
history.
better be. History is the shit.
Listen. Shh. So, yeah, it started there, right? It started with Manifest Destiny.
So what Manifest Destiny means, the belief that we had a God-given right to spread West and
Yes.
spread democracy and capitalism, find religious freedom.
But then
and-
it kind of got twisted sideways in a sense, too.
In a lot of sideways. I mean, the whole United States is founded on sideways.
Yeah, well, that's true.
There was not the gold rush just yet, by the way.
No.
Not there yet.
No.
Not there yet.
So it was actually first written about by John L. O'Sullivan in 1845. And basically, his quote that started all this shit was, he said, "It is the right of our manifest destiny to overspread and possess the whole of the continent, which Providence has given us for the development of the great experiment of liberty and federated self-government entrusted to us."
The Louisiana Purchase gave it to us, really.
Well, there's that, too. So, basically, the Donner Party is like this wagon train that's going cross country to get to California.
The Oregon Trail. Do you remember playing the Oregon Trail?
I'm not sure I actually ever played it.
Oh my God. I died of dysentery.
Didn't everybody? Everyone has died of dysentery at some point in their
And
life.
yes, and it brought back so many memories just thinking about playing the Oregon Trail and like the blue screens and like the original Apple computers and like all these.
Yeah. So in this case, I just wanted to like talk about a little bit, the fact that wagon trains were actually a standard method of travel for that time period, which was generally between 1840s and 1880s. And
even later in some parts of the country, where like trains didn't hit and all that good stuff.
yeah. Obviously the Oregon Trail is the most well known, and it spanned over 2,000 miles.
Yes, ma'am.
And some of the other notable ones are the Santa Fe and California trails, which actually play a role. The California Trail specifically plays a role in this particular story. Most of them originated from Independence, Missouri. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they said if the terrain allowed for it, the wagons would actually sometimes kind of spread out because it minimized the amount of dust being blown onto the wagons behind them. What I think is really the coolest part of all of this. So if you guys decide that listening to our podcast has made you want to travel, check out new places, believe it or not, just from like never mind a haunting standpoint, there are places on the original Oregon Trail where you can still see the rut marks from the wagons. And I so badly want to go do that. Like, never mind the haunting part of it. I just want to go do that. But yeah, the trip generally took about 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is crazy considering you could be on the other side of the country.
You do like 15 miles a day.
Yeah.
Which if you really think about it, like I travel like 60 miles a day for work. Back and forth.
Yep. So back then it would have taken you a year.
Yep.
Maths. Not good at that. That's why we're doing this. Not teaching a math class.
No. Not going to be math ever. Yeah. 15 miles a day.
Yep.
And you think a lot of the wagons they were made of wood. A lot of the wheels.
Yeah.
And you think about it.
Well, some of them were wrapped in metal too. They had that element.
But when you think about it, like, you had a shit ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
Think about now when you just go to, like, Florida, say, like Disney World. We're in New York right now. If you couldn't tell by the way we were speaking terribly. So, well, me. You're
No, I definitely think I sound far worse than you.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'll take it. So you just go into Florida for a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta pack a suitcase, toothbrush, underwears, bra. I
Maybe.
guess that's in underwears. Clothes. You don't need to bring snacks and all that. You get to the airport, all that good stuff. They had to bring rations, not only for themselves, but for their animals, water, and they had to put all that stuff in extra wagons, which had to be taken by extra animals.
Right.
And that's like salted meat, fish, biscuits.
And they had to account for if they ran out of what they had that was actually
clothing,
packed.
Trunks, their heirlooms, because they brought everything with them.
Extra animals.
Tools.
Because in case they needed to,
Any medicine that they could possibly bring, afford, anything like that.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And then everything that could go wrong for that thing had to also be brought.
Yep.
Yeah.
So supplies to fix the wagons.
Supplies to horseshoes.
Yep.
Yeah. Tools for the horses and the shoes and
a lot
of
stuff. Shit. Yep.
Plus children. And we all know how much more children are.
Yeah. So. Although, a 16-year-old then and a 16-year-old now, totally different people.
16-year-old then was
a man
married with a
working.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah. 16-year-old now is playing Pokego.
I play shit like that. Just saying.
Oh,
yeah. So I also thought about the fact that our podcast mixes true crime and the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
But the Donner situation, we'll call it, not really a crime.
See, the criminal...
I think this is where we may... Oh, see, this is why great minds think alike.
Hastings.
Yep.
Yep, that motherfucker.
That bastard. And I literally wrote, see in my notes, what makes this a crime?
Hastings. He honestly, did anyone ever bring him to justice?
No.
I would have lived. I would have eaten every motherfucker on the show just to find this guy and beat the crap out of him. Let me tell you.
It's so interesting how later the haunting part that I found ties back to him. Kind of interesting. So Hastings, Lansford Hastings.
What a stupid name.
Yeah, well, he's a stupid man. He actually published The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California in 1845 as a guide to traveling west. He sucked at it.
He knew he sucked at it.
No, you know what it was? It wasn't even so much that he sucked at it. He knew what paths to take. The problem was...
They weren't made for wagons.
No, it wasn't even that. He knew the good paths, and he just thought that if he had came up with a better option that was going to be faster...
Well...
It would help him politically and gain fame.
When he published that book, that route was taken twice.
Yeah. It really
by
wasn't even
two people
tested.
On horses.
Yeah. Which is a lot easier to do than a giant
never a
caravan.
Wagon. Never one wagon.
Nope. It was never actually fully tested for the purposes for which he was advertising it. Yeah. Yeah. He basically told everyone that this passage, called the Hastings Cutoff, would save more than 300 miles versus the well-worn California Trail or Oregon Trail.
Well-worn, by the way, meaning there were already divots and rivets of things made by
other wagons.
Other wagons.
Yep.
And all the stuff that you got to think about it too. This is all wilderness. Why can't I walk?
That's from sitting too close to me, apparently.
Men already hatcheted, cut down any of the thickets or anything trees, anything that needed to be cut down. That was well worn.
Yeah. Well, and so here were my notes. I said there were so there's no markings or existing ruts to follow.
Nope.
There was a steep, dangerous path that required the group to walk through a quickly moving river, because that's always fun to do with animals and children and wagons and all sorts of shit, to get between the sheer walls of quartz rock. So it wasn't even like you could say, oh, we'll climb up if it's not working. No, you're fucked. Mm-hmm. They had to cross the salt flats around Great Salt Lake. And it was a desert. So that meant 80 miles with no source of water. Except for what
grass
you have.
For the cattle and things to graze on.
Yeah. So they had nothing, right? If to that point they had already run out of supplies, they were completely screwed. Plus, again, it meant actually removing some of the trees and cutting back the brush to get the wagons through. Because it wasn't wide enough. Dick. My printer did a dick thing and decided to print double-sided, which is fine.
And it's upside down.
I gotta flip over. Because, why not? And the who. So I remember I said to you, I had texted Heather and I said, I was done with my research, but I liked the formatting that I had done for another episode that we did. So I broke it down by like the who of the incident or
Let's not get too into the family. There's too many people to like.
Well, we could go through relatively quickly because I think it's important to also know who died and who didn't. Right? We want to kind of know who lived and didn't.
I mean,
do you want to know? Maybe you don't give a shit.
I want to know who was eaten, who ate someone, and I think like the first couple deaths are significant.
Yes. Well, some of them, yes, because but then there are some that died like en route before things really hit the fan.
That's what I had written somewhere.
You know, because there were people that died along the way. There was one person that died like not even before they actually got to really moving along. Yeah, the mother-in-law.
Yeah. And there was like I was like, oh, like nothing really hit the fan yet, and there was like a stabbing, hypothermia. I don't know what that says. Oh, gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So basically, there were actually quite a number of like it's called the Donner Party, but it's also known as the Donner Reed Party because those are the two primary families.
Yeah, there was like 80-something people.
But there was literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 families that were traveling together at some point or another.
Yeah.
And then an additional 21 people that were just like extra farmhands.
Like yeah, stuff like that.
So you have the Donner family, right? Which is George, his wife, and did you like do a pronunciation guide for her name?
Donde?
Tamzine?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just, it's one of those that like, it's so unusual. And
That's
I like it a lot,
yeah.
actually. And I think it's important to know their ages. Like George was 60, his wife was 44.
That's common.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had a number of children. They had three, what? I don't even know what the hell I wrote. Oh, they had 3 daughters, Frances, Georgia, and Eliza, all of whom survived, which was a good thing. But both George and his wife did not. Then he had 2 daughters from a previous marriage that also survived. His brother was with them, his wife, their kids. She's stealing more bacon.
I didn't want that big.
Well, now you've got it. You own that bacon now.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the Reed family, which was James, his wife, a stepdaughter, their daughter. They had sons. So it was like half and half. There was one family, actually, no one in the family died. Actually, it was the Reed family. No, I'm lying.
Might have been the Reed family. Sort
of. So it was the Reed family that the mother, father, and all the kids survived. The only person in that family that passed was actually Margaret's mother. But she was 70 when they started out, and she was already ill. So that might explain that. Then there was the Murphy Foster Pike families, which was Lavina Murphy, who was 37, and she had 13 children.
Lavinia.
Or 13 family members.
I think it's Lavinia.
There's no extra I in there.
I like Lavinia better.
I do too, but that doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it right. Okay, I can't eat bacon until you're done, because then one of us has to be talking. Otherwise, we're all sitting here in
Bacon
silence.
dance.
So she had with her youngest children who ranged in age from 16 to 8. And then she had 2 married daughters that were traveling with their significant others, and a son and 2 daughters. So she had her grandkids with her too. Then there was the Eddy family, which was just husband, wife, and 2 children. The Breen family, which again was husband, wife, and 7 kids, all ranging in age from 14 to 11 months. The Kesselberg family, did you hear about them? So it was husband, wife, their daughter, Julianne Carolyn, or also known as Ada, who was 3, and Louis Jr., who was actually born on the trail.
Oh, God bless that woman.
Yeah. And sadly, actually, in that family, only the parents survived. They lost both their children.
I'd rather be dead.
See, this is why I feel like it's important to know who lived and who died. I found an excellent website. I feel horrible because I didn't actually do the copy-paste of that link. Forgive me. I will find it. We will add it because the chick that put this site together knows her shit and did a lot of research.
Good for her.
So I trusted because I had, you do the usual Wikipedia and then it's like, all right, you check the references and like you start there, right? And then I branched off and I'm like, oh, shit, half the stuff I had was wrong. How do you, literally Wikipedia is copy and paste.
But anyone can edit it.
Yeah, true. Well, people are stupid. Okay. And I know it's not a really good source, but I use it as a starting point, and I go from there. Then there was the Wolfinger family, which I thought was kind of an interesting group in that, well, it was, I shouldn't say group, it was a husband and wife. I don't even know the guy's first name. But apparently he was a wealthy immigrant from Germany, they believe.
Call him Wolf.
And it's that...
Wolfinger.
This has an interesting story. Do you know the story about them? We'll get to that, I guess, right? When we get to the timeline, kind of what the hell happened. There was the McCutcheon family, which was another mother, father, and child. The Graves-Fostick family, which was husband, wife, their children who ranged in age from 21, and the daughter who was 21 was married. Her husband was with them as well, and the youngest being a year old. The others, like we said, about 21 of them, ranging in age from, I think the oldest was 60, Mr. Hardcoop, who they believe may have been a teamster for the Kesselbergs. And then I think the youngest was 16. Yeah, 16. So, yeah. It's a very, very sad story. Super, super sad. Super sad. Oh, there's the rest of the people. I knew that wasn't long enough. Yeah, they're there. Okay, moving on.
There's a lot of people on this journey.
I think at one point it was like 87.
Like 80 something. Mm-hmm.
87, I think was the highest number. So, where should we go next? Do we want to... Did I screw you up?
Nope.
Do you have anything to add to the peoples? The people part. I guess it's the most important part. Because that's how they survived, isn't it? It is.
I mean, didn't put everyone like that.
I'm a little crazy, right?
If I was writing a book, maybe. But
I don't know, I'm starting to feel attacked here. I get bacon stuck in my straw.
Oh, set out.
Anyway, we'll put that over there for now.
No, I just skipped over like some of that stuff. Like the people that were in some of the key stories, I kind of just mentioned.
I mean, there were some that were kind of interesting. Like there were people left behind to die.
Yeah.
So, and some of them were the lesser known people. So, yeah, just like this is the timeline. 1, 2.
And it seemed like some families were like they met up with the wagons and some left, and so it was like people were going off all over the place.
6 pages of just timeline.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot. I'm just saying. I mean, I tried to condense it and make it brief. That somehow managed to be brief. I don't know what that means.
You know what I wrote? Giant party of people.
That would not be an inaccurate statement, though.
That encompassed. I was going through all the people, and I was just like, giant party of people. Mm-hmm. That's what I will write.
Good to know for next time when I start writing out all of the names.
So by the time all these people got to where I guess they were supposed to be taking the trail that this moron said, he had left already.
Yeah, that was kind of a dickish thing to do.
With another party. So his solution was to like nail pieces of paper to trees. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're going to be going like west for a little while. It's going to be really rocky for 2 days. And that's where you'll be going. So a bunch of people in their wagons would be listening to these like pieces of paper.
It's a very technical explanation there. So I think it's also important to understand when they started this track, right? So if we assume that,
yes,
we said earlier that generally the trip takes 4 to 6 months, right?
July, I think.
So no, they started in April.
Okay.
Right? I mean, technically they started in April, right? So they started in April, and assuming that everything goes well, let's say it takes 6 months. So they should have arrived by October.
Right. I have them starting in July where
they actually
like where it's split.
Right. So, but if you go back, so April is when the Donner and Reed families actually leave Springfield, Illinois. And at that point, it's only 9 wagons and 33 people. And then they arrive in Independence. Now, just to give you an idea, it's almost a month before they arrive in Independence, Missouri to collect provisions and make their final arrangements. And then, between then and let's see, even the end of May, right? So they get to this Big Blue River, which I think, they couldn't come up with another name. Big Blue River. Okay. That's in Kansas, I believe. And then, they really started their actual travel like the middle of May.
Right, and the whole thing was you don't want to be stuck in wet season because then the wagons can't get through there and the animals will have a hard time. You definitely don't want to be there during the snow. And the best time, I guess, would have been through summer.
Yeah. Because the spring, you have fresh growth, rain, good for the cattle and everything else. So there's plenty of water to be had generally from runoff, like melting snow and all of that kind of good stuff. So that was their plan.
They were also told it was not going to snow.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Until because December.
Right, and they were supposed to have arrived in California.
Because they're supposed to be a shortcut.
Right, exactly. So it's interesting because at the end of June is when they actually meet up with this gentleman, James Kleiman, in Fort Laramie, Wyoming. I almost said Wyoming. And he actually had encouraged them to take the route that everyone knew. Like, don't take the shortcut. It's a bad idea.
Right.
And they decided, nah, we're going to do it anyway.
Well, I think they went to like a trading post or something that the guy was friends with, Hastings.
Oh.
And Hastings had like a deal with him. You steer people my way. I cut you in on A, B, and C. So they said, like, no, that guy told us not to go Hastings' way. He was like, oh, no, that guy's wrong. The Hastings way is better. I see the people from all the time. And he told them to go the way the Hastings said.
Yep.
So that guy's an idiot, too.
Yeah. So 4th of July, they celebrate at Beaver Creek. One portion of the party, the Grays Party, is a week behind at Fort Laramie still. And then William Russell and others trade wagons for pack mules and leave the train for Hastings Cutoff, I guess, because they realized that they were going to have a harder time with some of the wagons, right? On the 11th, they end up at Independence Rock. That's where they meet this gentleman, Wales B. Bonney, who has a letter from Hastings saying that he'll meet them at Fort Bridger and lead them through the cutoff.
Which he didn't do.
He did not. Lying sack of shit. So this is where the Donner and July 18th or 19th, they weren't able to like pinpoint a date apparently. The Donner and Reed family split from the rest of the group at Little Sandy River, Wyoming, and they go left to Fort Bridger and the entrance to the Hastings Cutoff. This is when they officially become the Donner Party. And they also took on the guy, Luke Halloran, who was the one who had TB, or as I called it at the time, consumption. which I happen to, I kind of like that better.
Yeah, consumes you.
Yeah, it does. So July 28th was when they were supposed to meet up with him, but they didn't, and he's a dick. So they decided to spend a few days kind of just chilling out, resting, because, it's not exactly an easy trek.
No.
So let's see. Then there was another note, right? August. They find another note.
Yes.
And this is the one where they get to Weber River and they find the note from Hastings saying, don't go down to Weber Canyon. Did you see that part? Like, he's now changing his mind. It's like, oh, maybe that's not such a great idea. It's interesting because there was also this little part where it says the largest group of the Donner Party camped near current-day Hennifer, Utah. And all I could think of is what the hell is it? Is it South Park? Maybe it's South Park. I don't know, but I've heard the term Hennifer instead of saying Jennifer.
Oh.
Never mind. Forget it. I give up. But apparently, James Reed, Charles Stanton, and William Pike go ahead to, I fucked that flip over, to try and meet up with Hastings and get more instructions. And apparently they found him at the south shore of the Great Salt Lake. He goes back with them part of the way. Stanton and Pike stay with Hastings a while to rest horses. The Graves family caught up with the Donner Party at Hennifer. And Reed arrives back at camp, and the group votes to try the route rather than backtrack to Fort Bridger. This is the point. I think this is where they have the most people now. It's 87 people and 23 wagons.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. I have 5 people in my house, and that's too many. Yeah. So August 11th, they start cutting shit down. Because they don't have a choice now, do they?
No.
Why?
Because it's a stupid route.
Oh, my God. So August 25th is when Luke Halloran dies. So that's to start.
Yes,
I think
have that.
other than
That
the
is
one.
TB.
Yeah. So we've got 2 deaths, but they're natural,
Right.
essentially, right? Nothing too crazy at this point. Funny because I don't know why it didn't dawn on me when I read this. They were saying on August 28th, immigrants cut grass for the dry drive across Great Salt Lake Desert, and I wasn't thinking, like, why are they cutting grass? Why do they give a shit about grass? And then I realized when you said it, like, duh, idiot. The animals have to eat something too. Dumbass. I think other than the obvious bits, I feel like the whole thing about crossing the desert had to be the worst.
Well, they said that the oxen got so crazed from like dehydration, they lost a lot of them because they broke free.
Oh, goody.
From the wagons and they
good.
Bounced. So that
I
they
can't blame them.
Yeah, they spent extra time. They said like 2 extra days, either trying to find their oxen, or moving provisions from one wagon to the other because they couldn't find their oxen. So they had to like move the provisions.
They had to do something.
So the good oxen, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they now like more time has added.
Yeah, I actually found a quote that said, during the day the heat turned the sand into bubbling stew that swallowed their wagons, and at night they experienced frigid wind blowing up sand that would suffocate the oxen.
These poor oxen, man.
I know. Okay. It's gonna sound horrible. Okay. If I watch a movie,
I know,
anything with an animal in it, like they could have murdered the entire town, and I'd be like,
the squirrel got away.
But the second they touch an animal, I'm like, no!
Yeah, I hate this movie.
I'm turning it off. So I feel bad for the animals because they didn't ask for this shit.
No, they didn't.
So on September 4th, and here's something else I didn't realize, and that's part of this one, right? So they finished their trek across the desert. They decided to rest for a few more days, and they ended up abandoning some more wagons, right? Because, like you said, the oxen said, fuck you. But I found it interesting that they sent members ahead to obtain supplies. So it was sort of like they were out of touch, but they weren't completely out of touch. Like, if you had people who could just take a horse and go, no problem.
Right.
Like, they could have gotten there like that.
Yeah.
No issue. The fact that they had families and elderly people and young children and all of these supplies, it's the supplies.
But again, that's
them.
Yeah. Again, this stupid route was never taken with
that
wagons.
Too. Yep. Yeah.
So I'm up to the part on here now where the 2 wagons become tangled.
Oh, I haven't heard about that.
Oh. Well, that's how Reed got banished.
Yeah, I knew about what happened. I didn't know. Okay.
So
what precipitated this whole situation?
Really, like road rage. John Snyder,
early American road rage.
It was. So Reed had like a driver for one of his wagons. Mm-hmm. He got himself tangled with John Snyder's wagon.
Uh-huh.
I guess the oxen got all like tangled. So John Snyder took a whip and started beating the ox on the head.
That's not nice.
Right.
Don't do that.
So Reed came and like tried to intervene and got himself whipped by Snyder. Oh. And then he got pissed, and then his wife tried to intervene and she got whipped. At that point, Reed stabbed John Snyder in the collarbone and killed him.
Oh, goody.
And the problem was that Reed was not very popular. John Snyder was more popular. So Reed...
popular. I know about popular.
Sorry. Yeah, so...
Every time I hear that word, I feel like I have to sing that song. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, yeah, so they wanted to hang him on the spot.
Yes, I saw that.
But they ended up deciding to banish him.
Yeah, because his wife begged for his life.
So he was begged. So he was banished without provision, except I think his stepdaughter ended up like riding along and sneaking and giving like some provisions like by a tree or something and a rifle.
Yeah.
And he like rode off and fucked off into the dust.
And he went and got supplies. He actually went ahead.
He basically saved their ass at the end of all this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I also read that Walter Heron, one of the, I guess, like the Teamsters or whatever, had gone with him. Decided to, I guess, not leave him alone.
Right.
So this was one of the sad ones. Like this, now we're in October, right? And that guy Hardcoop, which they don't know his first name either. I don't know where where his first
Oh,
name
yeah,
is. But
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So he's unable to keep up and is left behind in the desert as no one will go back for
Well,
him.
Kessberg, he was, I think, one of the German immigrants.
I think so, yeah. There were a lot of Germans.
At this point, I mean, you can't really blame him, but he was one of the elders, Hardcoop.
Yeah.
And
I think he was the one that was 60.
And the oxen they were like starving and weak, and he was
unable
in the wagon.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, you got to get out. Like, you can't take the weight in here." So he made him walk, and he sat with swollen feet, and then that was it.
Yeah, just left him there, which is horrible.
Yeah,
I don't like any of this.
No, it's awful.
I mean, it's just, again, it's like I said in the last episode, that one decision or that one thing that you do, like, you know, the idea of, hey, I want a better life for myself. I'm okay in Illinois. Like, it's not great. It's not perfect. There's more opportunity in California. But I could stay here. And they make that decision one day to say, let's try California. And because of that, here we are.
But, like, does no one do their research? Did anyone ask Hastings if anyone took a wagon that way?
That would have been a helpful thing to do. I feel like, don't mind me, I have to move my microphone slightly. Just because I think maybe you guys can't hear me as well. Not sure. We're going to find out. Now I have this giant thing in front of my face. Awesome. Sorry. Side. Here we go again. In tandem with that one, so it was somewhere between October 6th and 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the whole thing with that Wolfinger guy, the German guy, apparently he stayed behind to cache, which means bury, his wagon, which seems like an insane task.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah. Like, did you bury the whole damn thing, or did you take everything out? I mean, I feel like it would have been easier to take the shit out, bury it, and leave the wagon. Who gives a shit about the wagon? If you bury the wagon, it's going to disintegrate. Like, do you really think you're going to be able to pluck it out of there and use it again?
And grow another wagon.
I feel like that was really stupid. Anyway, so apparently 2 other Germans, Reinhardt and Spitzer, stayed behind with him.
Okay.
And they claimed that while they were doing this, that he was murdered by, natives or whatever.
Mm.
And then, I don't have it in my notes exactly when it came out, but apparently it came out later on that, he wasn't murdered by anybody but the 2 guys that were with him. Don't really understand why, though. Like, why would you go back to the party? Especially if you're not coming back with anything. So really, what was the point? You didn't keep the guy for food. You didn't keep the guy's wagon. And other than the potential of being found out and being murdered yourself, what the fuck was the point of that? I guess your guess is as good as mine then. Okay.
October 20th, William Pike was killed in a gun accident.
Yep.
I guess, I don't know if he was loading it or whatever, cleaning it, and went off someone and shot him.
That's fantastic.
Dead.
This is also, I believe, in that time period where they received supplies from Charles Stanton, who brought with him
the Miwok natives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Luis and Salvador.
Yeah.
They're important.
Where did the name Salvador?
I don't really know.
Did they name them that?
Probably.
Okay.
Don't mind me moving my microphone again. Because now I think it might be a little too loud.
Oh boy.
Don't be a dick. All right. Anyway, moving on. So yeah. And this is like one of the things that they kept experiencing, besides the fact that they took this stupid fucking route.
Yeah.
Is that, like, they would have just random issues. Like, apparently, they were stuck at Alder Creek Valley because there was a broken axle.
Yeah.
And this is when George injures his hand, which is also apparently important to the story later on. So remember that. October, he hurts his hand. Just keep that in the back of your minds.
This is also when it snowed.
Yeah, for the first time.
Which came like 2 months earlier than they thought it would.
Yeah. Yep.
And it wasn't at first even that bad of a snow.
No.
But they tried to get up the mountain, but the snow drifts.
Yeah.
It was not working with the wagons.
No.
Or the oxen, they were slipping.
Yeah.
So they pretty much were like, we're stuck here now.
Yep.
We done stuck.
Yes, they were. And apparently, so at the end of October was also when Reed had actually finally reached Sutter's Fort, met up with one of the other gentlemen that had been ill and couldn't return to the group. And so the two of them now decide to get some supplies and head back for their families, right?
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say now they're also now close to the Sierra Mountains at this point.
Right.
Which is where things go fucked.
One of the good things, though, was that some of them were able to take shelter in some old cabins.
Yeah, I think there was one, and then they built a whole...
Yeah, someone had like a lean-to they built.
Yeah.
Some of them were able to go in like some former decrepit cabins from former pioneers. That was, I think, the only slight saving grace, because apparently I think the snow lasted like 8 days.
Yeah, and they had 59 people in 3 cabins. And their hope was obviously that the snow was going to melt, and then they'd be able to start trekking across again.
That was a big no-no.
Yeah, no. This was the winter from hell, apparently.
Yeah, they already had little food left. Their oxen, the remaining oxen, began to die and freeze because they didn't have barns.
Yep.
A lot of them were eating the rugs in the cabins. They were eating, did you get that?
No.
They were eating like the leather from their shoes. Any mice that would come running in, they would kill. They boiled animal hide.
Bark.
Bark.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the people that put, like, I guess, the top of the wagon, which was animal skin, they would boil that and eat that. And the bones, they boiled it till they basically liquefied.
Ugh.
Yeah. So they were extremely desperate.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, I had seen that they had, like, so the mules that Sutter had obtained in place of his wagons, that ended with, that, like, he finished those off. Or rather, the mules had actually wandered off in the storms, and then their bodies were lost under the snow. So they lost animals not just from dying, but like literally just fucking off, and they didn't know where the hell they went.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I also discovered that apparently, where was it? So there was also the Mexican War, right? So that was happening. So there weren't very many people that could help them.
No.
To get supplies to these people from the opposite side of the Sierra Mountains. And of course, they think that these people have brought enough provisions. Or that they have enough to survive.
Yeah, well, they also thought they were going to be there a lot faster.
Right. But I'm saying like the
Hastings.
Right. So but I'm saying like the people in California that would have normally gone and said, "Hey, I think they might need some help," figured, "Oh, they'll be fine. They should have enough stuff."
They're not going to take that stupid route that Hastings suggested.
Right. And apparently on November 20th, which is actually when Patrick Breen starts to keep a diary.
Yeah.
Which is how a lot of the information that we have today is accessible to us. Couldn't come up with that word for a minute. Apparently, I forget who it was. One of the gentlemen actually knew how to make, like, he was used to making snowshoes.
Franklin Graves. He grew up in Vermont, so he was very familiar with snow.
Yep.
Yeah. And they made enough for 17 men, women, and children. And they went off, but brought 6 days worth of rations, a rifle, and a blanket each, and a hatchet. And they named it the Forlorn Hope.
Yes. Which is quite sad.
Yeah, and it's not funny, but it's funny. 2 days without food. Did the whole thing with Patrick Dolan.
I feel like I missed that.
Okay, so Patrick Dolan was an Irish immigrant. Now, I guess, I don't know if he was starting to go a little mental from being starving and freezing. This is the first guy that brought up cannibalism. He had said to them, listen, I think we should sacrifice one of us, and eat one of us. We should draw straws, but like draw a piece of paper. We all have a journal. One of us will have a longer piece. We'll pick them, and that's the person that gets like sacrificed. And they drew them, and he drew the long straw.
And then he changed his fucking mind.
It was more like, it was just
I didn't really suggestion.
It was just like a fleeting suggestion. I'm so sorry.
I think this is a bad idea now.
Not exactly what I meant. So he brings it up, and he draws the long piece of paper, and he, I guess, was able to talk everyone out of it.
Yeah.
They decided to not do that.
I'm pretty sure everybody didn't really want to do it.
No.
And so in one way, it saved a life.
Sort of.
A lot of lives, in some senses.
Sort of.
Yes, but not really.
They did eat him.
Eventually.
Yeah, because he did go crazy and run naked into the woods. And then run back out of the woods and then died. And then they ate him.
But he was dead.
He was dead.
From natural causes. Sort of.
I was like, of course. This guy thinks he's being slick, and then he's like, hell.
Yep. So he at least got himself a couple extra days.
Sure.
Essentially.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
But from then, it kind of went downhill.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, right? So
Yeah.
December 16th is when Forlorn Hope sets out for their trek to try to get some help, get food, all that good stuff. December 21st, so just 5 days later, Milt Elliott returns from the Donner camp at Alder Creek with news. Jacob Donner, Samuel Shoemaker, James Smith, and Joseph Reinhardt are all dead. Yeah. And this is also about the same time when Charles Stanton, snowblind and exhausted, is unable to keep up with the other snowshoers and tells them to go on. He never rejoins them.
Yeah, he was found by a tree, I believe.
Yeah. It just gets worse and worse. It's like so many people just dropping. Yeah. And so like this was kind of hard too, because there were like groups that were going ahead, then there were groups that were coming back. It was like this weird like ping pong of people going ahead and coming back and whatever, and then the group Forlorn Hope gets caught in another blizzard.
Yeah, and Lewis and Salvatore were with this Forlorn Hope group, and they were refusing to eat the people until they started to look at them like, well, if you're not going to eat, you might as well be the food source.
Yep.
So they like busted out of there. They ran off until they found them a couple days later, looking starving. And then they shot them and ate them. Yeah. And they dressed them like they were deer. They take the flesh off. They
yep.
They made like jerky.
Yep.
Yeah, they
she has no appetite. I'm eating this.
did all that good stuff that you would do to like a deer.
Yeah, so this is like the end of December, right? Merry fucking Christmas. Between the 25th and the 29th. So I had noted that, right, this other blizzard catches the Forlorn Hope out in the open. They have great difficulty getting and keeping a fire lit. Antonio, Patrick Dolan, Franklin Graves, and Lemuel Murphy die at the, quote, camp of death. With nothing left to eat, the survivors tearfully resort to cannibalism.
Tearfully.
Yeah. Back at the lake camp, Charles Berger dies. This is why I said it's very confusing, because it's like different parties in different areas. They all kind of fucked off in different directions. So apparently now we're in January, so it's 1847 now. We forgot to mention this.
Happy New Year.
1846. Before. Now we're in 1847. We've moved on. This is what I thought was interesting. So James Reed actually participated in the Battle of Santa Clara.
Oh, was he just like on his way and was like,
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of weird. But then the Mexican War is winding down in Northern California, which frees up some men and supplies, and he again turns his energies to rescuing his family.
busy time.
Yes, 'twas. Let's see. So, there's a lot of leaving children with other people, too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, like, or you're going ahead, better chances, take the kids, right? Which feeds into my paranormal stuff later, which I have my own thoughts on it. I'll just say that. So Mrs. Reed, her daughter Virginia, Milt Elliott, and Eliza Williams set out to cross the mountains, leaving the smaller Reed children with others. First, Eliza, then the others give up and return to the cabins. The Reeds take refuge with the Breens, Eliza with the Graveses. So again, like, even though they have all these little lean-tos and whatever, like, obviously a cabin is far more preferable to a tent made of hides that they probably had to
eat.
Yeah, exactly. So finally, like mid-January, 7 survivors, and I think there was 15 of them, right, initially? They finally get to Johnson's ranch. Of the 8 that died, 7 of them were cannibalized. That's just the Forlorn Hope group. That's the group that went ahead. Jay Fostick dies of starvation and exhaustion. But, and like you were saying, the 2 Indians, Luis and Salvador, were killed for food. So that's mid-January. Keysburg Jr. dies in the Keysburg lean-to on January 24th. And the first letter, I guess, was written. This was interesting. January 29th, from his ranch near Sutter's Fort, Alcade John Sinclair writes a letter to Alcade Washington Bartlett of San Francisco describing the Donner Party's plight. Because apparently there was actually like a push to raise money for them
Yes,
and to
a couple
supplies
times.
and to help them.
Well, there was murmurings of cannibalism. And everyone was like, wow, they must be really desperate.
No
Right?
shit. This was like the GoFundMe of the times.
It was.
Right? So then January 31st, Landrum Murphy dies. And the first relief party leaves Sutter's Fort. February 2nd, Harriet McCutcheon dies. February 4th, Margaret Eddy dies. February 5th, the first relief party leaves their stop off. Now February 7th, Eleanor Eddy dies. So like it's like the beginning of February, but just fucked.
Happy Valentine's Day.
A lot of people didn't have their Valentines for Valentine's Day.
Or they ate them.
Yep.
And they did have, okay, so there was actually like some sort of moral code amongst the cannibals to not eat your own family member. So if they killed 2 people and you were related to one of them, you don't eat your kin, you eat the other person. I mean, it didn't always stick if that was the only person.
If that's all you got, that's,
I guess.
What are you going to do? Yep. So, let's see. That was February 7th. Did I say that Eleanor Eddy died on February 7th? Yes. February 8th, Augustus Spitzer dies. February 9th, Milt Elliott dies. I feel like he was also left behind somewhere.
Milt?
Yeah. I don't know.
Not sure.
Anyway. 11 of the immigrants at the lake have died. And obviously the others are not in good shape physically or emotionally. No, really? Would never have guessed that. Yeah. Let's see. Where are we at now? February 20th, Catherine Pike dies. Because we talked about some of this already. The fact that, basically, like, again, there was the Forlorn Hope people that just kind of jumped right into the cannibalism.
Yeah, they kind of did.
And the Donner Party at the lake didn't so much want to do it.
Right.
They weren't, like, they kind of knew they had no choice, but...
I think they were holding out hope that people were coming back.
Yeah.
And the people that were out there knew that they were screwed.
Yeah,
so they
exactly.
just kind of went right into it.
They knew they were all screwed and fucked. So, let's see. This is February 21st to the 26th. There's a lot going on. So, the second relief heads up into the mountains from Johnson's Ranch on the 21st. The same day, the first relief leaves the camp with 23 refugees. So, there's a lot happening here. They're starting to try to make their way over the mountain with some people.
To grandmother's house?
Exactly. Patty and Tommy Reed say, screw this, and they're going back to stay with the Breens. Ada Keysburg dies and is buried in the snow. They don't say this. But I feel like maybe was that done to like, we don't need to eat her right now. But Ada was only 3, so maybe they didn't want to do that.
Well, no, they ate infants.
Okay, so never mind.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe they buried her in the snow because refrigeration.
Preserved.
Basically.
I feel like they would have smoked her.
It's like you're looking all sad and these children are dying, and then she's like, I feel like they would have smoked her.
I feel like, yeah, they would have smoked her because...
Like, what, on a spit?
No, they smoked the meat. I just feel like they would have smoked her to preserve her. I don't know. Maybe they just had no need for her at that point.
Or, yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Because I don't necessarily know. I don't know. Maybe she froze and then they couldn't. I don't know.
I don't want to know. I can't even begin to imagine what they were going through or thinking or feeling or any of that.
No.
John Denton at this point can't go on any further. He's left behind to die. See, and I feel like... That's horrible too. Like, that's so fucking awful. Because it's one thing to die of natural causes or starvation or like the person dies, right? Their body just says, fuck this.
Mm-hmm.
But to willingly leave someone behind and be like...
I'd much rather that than me eating.
I mean,
hypothermia isn't terrible because, yes, you're freezing, but right before you freeze, you actually get hot. That's why a lot of the people that freeze are found naked.
I don't really care. It's the whole idea of being alone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it would kind of suck. I don't know. So February 27th through the 28th, the first relief meets the second relief coming the opposite direction. This is what I mean. Like, there's so much going back and forth. I got very confused. After an emotional reunion with part of his family, Reed hurries on to the cabins to get Patty and Tommy while the others continue down the mountains. And this is one of those that's funny but not funny. Only a few days from safety, young William Hook dies after overeating.
What did he... Oh.
It's so not funny. It is not funny at all. But it's like, there's so much irony in that. Because I'm sure, like they say, like people who haven't eaten in a long time, like you don't feed them excessive amounts of food.
Right.
Because it can actually cause problems, right?
Lots of problems, yeah.
But so it's not funny. But given this situation...
It is ironic.
It is ironic that somebody who has not eaten dies from overeating.
That's a thing.
And to be fair, what makes it really horrifying is it was a child. So, like, that's another story.
That's pretty horrible. Poor kid.
So, March 1st, the second relief party arrives at the lake camp. And this is when they discover the cannibalism that has taken place. March 2nd, at Alder Creek, Reed finds that the Donners have also resorted to cannibalism. So there's, again, these multiple parties, just so you're not confused. There's some leaving and more people fucking off and trying to get to safety. And guess what? Another goddamn blizzard.
Of course.
In case you didn't hear me. Another blizzard. Because I realized I whispered and I shouldn't have done that, but, whatever. So that was March 5th through the 7th. All of this happens. So some people stay at another camp, which they dubbed Starved Camp.
Well, which one would that be?
All of them. I know. Really? Could you come up with a better name? I don't know.
How about Starved Camp by the Acorn Tree?
I feel like I'm taking up all of the talking.
Oh, no?
Are you enjoying my...
I'm listening.
And then you just add. Let's see. So March 12th, on their way to the lake, third relief, led by William Eddy and William Foster, reaches Starved Camp. Mrs. Graves and her son Franklin have died. They and Isaac Donner have been cannibalized. One of the rescuers, John Stark, stays to help the Breens and others out of the mountains while the others continue up to the camps. The 13th, Eddy and Foster's party arrive at the lake camp. They find their sons are dead. I can't. Like, this whole thing just sucks. I feel like we're not even doing it enough justice. I feel like we need to do like a 4-hour episode.
Yes and no. It's like...
Because it's just when you think about 87 people.
Yeah.
And who goes and is trying so hard to get to some sort of help. And they bring back food and they're bringing back supplies. And it's like they come back and they find out that their children are dead. Like...
But, aside from the cannibalism, this was not... a rare thing.
I know.
But it's so much early American story.
I know, but it's so much in one short span of time, particularly. And just
look at the Trail of Tears.
But
that was intentional.
Yes. But I'm talking about so say these people were living in Illinois somewhere on a homestead, right? They may lose a child, which is awful.
Right.
And they may lose a second child, but generally it would be years apart.
And you're not going to eat them.
But in this case, some parents lost all of their children.
Right.
They may have only had 2 in that case, because the ones that had 15 of them, your odds were a little bit better. But to come back and find out your children are gone.
Yeah.
Both of them, all of them, at one shot.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is what's just so
It's really disturbing.
It is.
But this is not a depressing, depress me podcast.
Mm-mm.
We have bacon.
Are we sure about that?
We have bacon.
We have bacon, but literally the whole point of our podcast is true crime. Somebody died. That's
But we
depressing.
had bacon.
Unless the person's an asshole, in which case it's okay. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, now where are we? At the Alder Creek camp, now this is March 14th, George Donner is dying from the infection in his hand from October, from fixing the wagon.
I mean, I'm shocked he didn't die earlier from that.
Well,
Probably because it was cold.
Maybe. That's a good point. Maybe.
If it was hot,
he would have been stinking.
Dysentery.
Yeah. So his wife, Tamsin, although she was relatively healthy, she refuses to leave him, but sends her 3 little girls on without her. The third relief departs with Frances, Georgia, and Eliza Donner, and Simon Murphy. Elizabeth and Louis Donner have died. Samuel Donner, Livinia Murphy, and Louis Keysberg are too weak to travel. John Baptiste Trudeau and rescuer Nicholas Clark are left behind to care for the Donners, but abandon them to catch up with the relief. Assholes. Like, you're in good health. You could have helped them. Unless they were afraid they were going to be murdered for
it
fresh
could be.
meat.
I mean, at that point, you're so desperate.
Could. Maybe they tried to kill them.
You just want to get
And that's why they fucked off.
out of there. Yeah.
All right, so maybe they weren't assholes. I don't know. Who knows? Late March, another rescue party sets out, but is turned back by soft snow. So, this is why I don't like snow. See, snow is deadly.
I love snow.
Deadly snow.
Let it go.
No. April 17th, William Fallon and the 4th relief party reached the camps, finding only Louis Keysberg alive among the mutilated remains of his former companions. I mean, that's just fucking weird, too. Can you imagine being the only person left surrounded by bodies of people you've
This
eaten?
is, unfortunately, well, not the eaten part. I feel like it's happened a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't
history.
doubt that part, but, like, just,
Imagine
again,
the PTSD these
the
people
eating.
had. Oh,
I think I'd become a vegetarian after that.
I don't know if you'd have a choice.
I also read somewhere that humans are not actually very nutritious.
I'm sure they're not. Just like pigs, they're not very nutritious. But they're delicious. Not saying humans are delicious. I don't want to eat.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never tried one. Unless you can't, like, biting your cuticles is, like, cannibalism. Self-cannibalism, I guess. Anyway, moving on.
Does
Words?
Felicio kind of...
Yes, she went there. She absolutely fucking went there. Wow. No, because you're not eating it.
Well,
No, you're not. You're not ingesting it.
some.
Okay, well, that's a whole other story. I mean,
You didn't cut me off.
this podcast just went a totally different direction. We're going to be banned.
We're the
From
Red Light
something.
District podcast.
Yeah, right? And here I was thinking that Friday nights were generally better for us to record because we seem to be funnier on Fridays. Clearly, that is not the case. Yeah, so April 29th, end of April. Remember, now this is like a fucking year at this point.
Yeah.
This family's been traveling. More than that, really. Right? Because if they started out mid-April, now we're at the end of April, 1847.
Yeah, and they're all like dead.
Yeah, most of them. April 29th, the last member of the Donner Party, Louis Keysberg, arrives at Sutter's Fort. June 22nd, General Stephen W. Kearney, heading east, reaches the quote-unquote cannibal camp.
That's more appropriate name.
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, it is. Nom Nom Camp. Nom Noms. He and his companions are horrified at what they see. Mormon battalion veterans who form part of Kearney's entourage are detailed to gather the remains into the Breen cabin, which they then set afire.
Good.
Yeah. That really, I'm telling you, this could have been a 3-parter.
I'm glad it wasn't. We don't need to dive anymore in that creepiness. But, oh, look at your hauntings.
It's do your own research, goddammit. I'm like, this is like Atlas Obscura shit, you know, like this is like, I got some of this shit from, I'll be honest.
I tried to do my research at work, and then
So
I had the New York State audit this week, and then I had a kid bite another kid in the face. And then
cannibalism. It was appropriate given the research.
I had a teacher quit. It was like the whole thing this week. It was just...
Okay, so to be fair, if I'm being honest, because I know the hauntings usually, and this is, okay, so I have to say this. one of the things that I find is generally most hauntings are, I feel like we repeat ourselves. Footsteps, disembodied voices,
I did
apparitions.
find something really interesting.
Which was?
Did you find one about a skier?
I did. So I wonder if it's the same site. Was it theunion.com? Is that where you...
I did not source it, honestly. And that's a bad historian of me.
So I will let you do that one because
it's short and sweet.
Then I might be able to add to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
because that means she got more than I did. She wrote more.
I actually did so my point was that generally the hauntings are usually a lot of the same repetitive stuff.
See.
And it's the same stories over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that I don't do my research, but after a while, how many times can I say they heard crying? They heard footsteps.
Voices, yeah.
They saw a person in the field.
Yeah.
You get it. You get the fucking point.
Mm.
So I did my haunting research last night, and I'm reading some of these. Some of them just sound, I mean, don't get me wrong, they could very well be true.
Right.
But they sound a lot like urban legend. So I included them because I thought that they were interesting.
Mm.
One was from another podcast, which I'm not sure I want to give the name, not because I don't want to give credit, but because, again, I'm not so sure I believe the story to be truthful in its entirety. I feel like maybe it was embellished. Not that I'd mind listening to the podcast. I didn't actually listen to it. That's a whole other story. I read the transcript. But anyway, I digress. Moving on. Skiers. Right. Okay, let's do this.
So I read that a skier was skiing.
That's generally how that works.
And so came upon a camp of weird looking starving people. No, I can't now.
Right there.
Weird looking starving people in weird garb. And grew concerned and went to get help and came back and no one was there. And ended up being one of the spots where the Donner Party was.
So I wonder if it may be the same story or there was another one. Because the one I got was a skier was actually alone. And he was at this resort, which is close to obviously where the Donner Party had their last camp. He became disoriented. He wandered for a day searching for help. When he claims a woman skier appeared and led him to a camp of people. He said they asked him to do some work for them the next day alone.
Oh, I did see that. Different than this one.
Yeah. But when he went back later that day, the camp was gone. In fact, there wasn't even any indication that there had been a camp there in the first place.
Weird.
Yeah. So maybe it's two separate skiers, which gives credibility. Unless where you got yours was somebody else who fucked up the story. I don't know.
So I also found one. A woman went to go visit her friends. She was driving along, I guess, the area of the Donner Party. And she smelled like rotten flesh and heard like crying and screaming.
Oh, God.
And she didn't know where she was. And then when she got to her friend's house, they explained to her where that area was one of the horrific areas of the Donner Party.
Huh. Yeah. Is that all I got?
Oh, no, I have another one.
Okay.
Oh.
Keep going.
Okay. People were camping in the area.
Ooh.
And
I would have ended that in a hurry for me.
I would love to camp over there. In the middle of the night, they heard screaming and strange. It sounded like gunshots. But now, my thought would have been not even the Donner Party. Like, what's happening now?
Yeah, like the gunshots would have had me packing up and going home.
Yeah.
Well, because here's the thing: like, if somebody's hunting, like I don't know what the general area is, but like,
or the time of year.
If you're camping, it's probably warmer.
Right. Possibly, yeah. Or fall.
So I don't know. I feel like if you're camping and you hear gunshots, I mean, maybe probably leave.
Yeah.
Because either there's a crazed person out there in the woods, or somebody's hunting and you could be mistaken for an animal and then end up dead unintentionally.
Right. My thought would have immediately been like, time to go. Yeah. We're leaving.
Like now.
Or we're getting in the car. Yeah.
Sleep in the car at least.
Yeah. Those
were your hauntings?
Were the hauntings. But I know that, I mean, it's a lot of land to cover. Some are closer than others, but I would really like to go and camp there.
I just want to go there, period.
Yes.
But then again, we have a long list. I think every place we've ever talked about.
I know. We need to rent a Winnebago and just go.
I said that. So here's what I got. There was a woman that was going to visit the state park. This was in 1988. And she said that, like, she was saying that as they were getting there, she started to feel these sensations of excitement like as if she were going to see friends she hadn't seen in a long time. And I can kind of relate, because that, like, the first time I ever went to Salem, I can't explain to you why, but it just felt like I was going home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never been there before. So it wasn't like I could say, oh, I've been here and I feel comfortable or familiar with the place. No, it wasn't that. It was just, like, the first time, and I felt like I was going home. Which explains definitely that I'm a witch. She said as she got closer, the feelings became more intense, and she actually began to cry, like as if she were feeling the emotions of the people from the time. Once there, she had the feeling of being watched and not being alone, which obviously, if you're being watched, you can't really be alone, I suppose. Yeah. And the feelings only took hold, those feelings, when she was at the site believed to be where George Donner and his wife had their tent. This one was interesting. A woman actually was hypnotically regressed to a past life by a paranormal researcher by the name of Dr. Michael Newton. Allegedly, survivor Patty Reed came through, saying she was 8 years old, cold, and in the mountains. She also projects, Patty, that she had been carried out of the camp by a Frenchman. The investigator asks, and this is what I said about the whole Hastings thing, and him being the criminal. Mm-hmm. The investigator asks, what was the prime reason for the tragedy? And Patty answers, Hastings.
Yeah, that jerk. Sorry.
Newton claims that the woman had been hypnotized had no knowledge of the Donner Party in her wakened state.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily well known.
No, I think that most people, if you say Donner Party, people are like, I know the name.
Right, they don't necessarily know. Or even where it took place.
Right, they may say, well, aren't those people at 8 people?
Right, they don't necessarily know where.
Right. So we talked about the skier. This is from the Tahoe Weekly. To be fair, I mean, the website, I couldn't tell if it was like something wrong with the website, but like pieces of words were missing. Don't ask. Tamsin is apparently reported to be seen wandering through the darkness at the Donner Memorial State Park. She's described as glowing and shadowy, but appears and disappears very quickly. And then apparently also reports of a bearded man are seen in broad daylight or dusk in and around the museum. Those that have reported a sighting say he appears so lifelike that they don't realize he's an apparition until he walks through the wall.
Huh. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. I feel like there could be more than intelligent haunting. I feel like there could be way more of residual.
Yeah, I would say so. And you know what? I mean, okay, there was the Donner Party, but I would imagine that there were other people that even after them, like, lived in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, death is something that happens all the time. So, but like we said, you know, anytime there's like massive tragedy or like this type of situation,
and that is extremely scarring to having to eat.
Yeah.
Someone, especially someone you know. So yeah. I could definitely see that being like residual, like making a dent on the land that's just not going anywhere.
Yeah. So these next few, pardon me, are from the other podcast. So he starts off by explaining that this gentleman is out taking nature photographs. He's retired and decides he needs a hobby. And when he takes the photo, a Polaroid, to tell you when these photos were happening, he gets an apparition that appears to be a woman wearing a long soaked dress that has stringy hair and a gaunt face with wide eyes. And then he also goes on wide, hungry eyes. I'm like, oh, we're not going there, because that's speculation.
Well, I'd like to see that photograph.
Me too. We might have to see if we can find that. Then there was a park ranger that was tasked with clearing graffiti off of one of the monuments.
You know, wait a minute now. I fucking hate graffiti. Look, someone wants to graffiti something, I will buy them canvas. Even though I can't afford my own canvas. I will buy them canvas, graffiti my wall. Like, stop defacing monuments and shit. Not cool,
I know.
Man.
And again, this is also the site that, like, I don't, just, when you hear the story, you can tell me whether or not you think it's legit. Okay. So, he goes out, he's cleaning the graffiti off, which supposedly said, take the children.
The graffiti?
Yeah. Supposedly.
What is that, a ghost that could do graffiti?
I don't know.
Take the children.
So he thought he heard crying as he's cleaning this stuff off the monument. Then, as he continued to clean, he heard a sobbing sound that actually made him turn around, but no one was there. Then he goes back to his work, and he hears humming. But then he thinks it's the other ranger who was humming in the ranger station earlier, so this is why he thinks nothing of it. Turns around, but instead sees a woman in soaked clothing, stringy hair, and her lower lip is quivering. And she yells to him, so she's a distance away from him. She yells to him and asks him to take her children.
Oh.
So at first he thought it was a real person, and he thought she might have been a little cuckoo. He was like, I don't get paid enough to deal with this crap, right? He goes to grab his radio to try and get somebody out there to help him. But when he looked up again, the woman was like suddenly standing right in front of him.
Oh.
Creepy.
Yeah, that's not
He said she looked directly at him with bloodshot eyes, and he could feel the sadness coming off of her. He claimed to smell a rancid, rotten odor, which jives with what happened. Oh, your battery is getting low. Make sure you need to charge. Okay, moving along quickly. And he gets the rotten odor. He drives back away. The woman grabs his wrist and pleads for him to take her children. At that moment, his stomach growled, and the woman looked at him with pity. He said she lunged forward and hugged him, whispering that she was hungry too.
Oh.
He said that she hugged him tighter and tighter until he felt he couldn't breathe, and then suddenly released him. As soon as she did, he turned and ran back to the ranger station. Quite a few people have apparently claimed to gotten the same photo of a woman, like dressed in stringy hair and whatnot. Reports of abnormally high EMF detected at Pioneer Rock and former campsites. And the last one that I have is really what made me kind of go, I don't know about this. Apparently this girl is traveling to Lake Tahoe or whatever with her boyfriend, and they stop at the park to use the restrooms, and she gets out of the car and she's like questioning her relationship with him and everything, and she gets out of the car and she goes to use the bathroom. Here's someone come in. When she comes out of the stall, no one's there. She walks out of the bathroom and now there's snow on the ground, but there was no snow when she had gone into the bathroom. Yeah, right? So now she turns around, building's gone. This sounds more like a fucking hallucination to me.
The entire bathroom?
Yeah. So she sees a fire in the distance. She goes to move toward the fire. And as she is doing that, she sees multiple people looking at her from the woods, like from behind trees. And as she comes out, she notices their sharp cheekbones and pale skin and very old clothes. She claims a man approached her and grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward the fire. She falls to the ground screaming and kicking. He releases her, but a woman grabbed her wrist in his place. Again, the woman had long, stringy hair. Supposedly, the woman looked at the man that had grabbed the girl angrily and heard her muttering something about women always being stuck following their men. The woman looked down at the girl again, almost sympathetically, and told her to go, also saying she hoped the girl wouldn't stay with him. The girl claims to have run through the woods and suddenly found herself back in the parking lot. And then she leaves her boyfriend. Like, literally, she's like, I'm not going anywhere with you.
I mean,
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that sounds
Sorry.
more like she was smoking something. But it'd be interesting if that ghost was like, no, girl, get away from him. He's no good. Interesting.
So apparently that is what she said. I mean, I do believe that many of these places have some kind of activity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in terms of like the EMF, I can't necessarily go with that because a lot of the makeup of the land itself could create some of that. So it's kind of hard to say that that part is paranormal.
Right.
But I definitely think there's things going on. Whether or not it's full-fledged, like, buildings disappearing and shit.
Yeah, I've never really even heard of that.
No. That definitely sounds like she was on something.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if you got anything else.
That was it.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't do it justice.
No, but you know what? I feel like you're not going to do it justice unless you actually go there and almost like record from there.
Yeah.
That is like a super tragedy. Just like Trail of Tears, just like the Holocaust, just like, it's like, and I'm not comparing this to the Holocaust.
Just to be clear.
But it's like, that you can't do it justice in one episode. You just can't.
No, you can't. And I just don't know, like I said to you, I read this one thing where one of the relief parties reached the camp and found one of the little kids like sitting next to their half-eaten mother, crying. Like,
way to ruin my goddamn day, Cynthia.
Oh, please! I had already told you that. You knew that.
I don't remember.
Block that out.
Yeah,
blocked it out of your brain. All right. Well, I think we call it there.
Yeah.
Partly because we're about to lose our battery completely. So there's that. But yeah, we haven't really talked about what we want to do next.
We'll figure it out.
I'm sure we will.
Yep. Follow us on social medias.
Yes, please.
Videos.
And yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter.
Email us.
Yeah, please email us. Are you listening to us? Now you've seen us. So you really could say, okay, like now I feel like I really know you guys.
Or block us.